Let the magic rise.
You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hey folks, and a very big welcome to Jingly-Jangly, your weekly wrap on the latest political spills and esoteric thrills. Coming to you from Europe with me, Olly, still recovering from Christmas in Spain, and him, Piers in England. Fresh from Panto, the actor that he is. He's back, and I apologize. And we got Gary too, Mr. Branson, somewhere in California in a basement with his chickens. It's 10 at night here in Valencia. It's 9 in London. It's 4 Eastern, and it's merely 1 in the afternoon in California. Talking of which, Gary.
Yes, how are you?
Hello, mate. How are you? Oh, mate. How is it? How's the farm?
Oh, great. Now you've set them all off.
Yeah, they're all going now, man.
Yeah, they'll be going for the next half hour.
Piers, are you there in London?
Yeah. I'm here, man. Yeah. How you doing?
Yeah, good. So you were doing Scrooge, yeah?
Well, I'm still doing Scrooge. I've still got 2 to do. So it's just that we couldn't do it tonight because nobody wanted to come and see us. we only sold about 5 tickets. So the director of the theatre said, "Oh, sod it. Let's just like."
Well, their gain is clearly our loss, mate.
Well, every other show we're doing has sold well, and we've had good reviews and everything. It's just for some inexplicable reason nobody wanted to come and see it tonight. So I don't know whether there's some football on or like I don't know. I have no idea what's on that people don't want to didn't want to come to the show.
Okay, all right. Okay, never mind that. Look, so tonight's the what are we talking about, Piers?
I guess we're talking about sort of celebrity death in the main. There's been a lot of interesting cats that have basically, gone to the other side this year. So it's sort of.
Isn't that what's the case? What has it been? Has it really been more pronounced? Gary, has it been any more pronounced?
No, it really hasn't. Not even kind of.
Well, anyway, we're going to talk about that, for God's sake.
People die. Yeah.
We're also going to talk about some of the early deaths. There's been 1 or 2 poignant deaths, yeah, and it's been quite sad. But it's been a year where a lot of people have all sorts of things have died. I mean, the DNC died, didn't it? The GOP died. A lot of things died this year. Europe's nearly dead, or the EU rather. Sorry to conflate. Anyway, so we're going to talk a bit about that, and we've got somebody I've known for a long time. Last time I interviewed this guy was about 20 years ago at Bloomberg, and he is big time into. He's well written. He's published about 4 times, writing about celebs and music. He's a big music head. He's the editor of Dante magazine, which is an international arts, current affairs, and lifestyle. That's imprint. You can buy it down W.H. Smith's in the UK. He's a contributor to Forbes and all sorts of stuff. I I'm reading his bio here, but he's ex-Bloomberg, and I worked with him at Bloomberg, and they were good days. We used to call it the Bloomstart, us lot, when we went out for a smoke, disrespectfully. But anyway, he does stuff for Sunday Times, ITN, listens to about 1,000 albums a year. Blah blah. He's got his own hair. He's in good condition. No time wasters. No time.
I can see from his picture. His Skype picture that he's got a great head of hair.
Mark, are you there?
I'm sitting around.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
You sound a bit distant, Mark. a little bit sort of.
Let's bring
Is
the
it-
microphone closer together.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
That's great. Well, we've got quite the
both
club here tonight.
here in London, Piers. So there we go. It's getting it across to the other side of the water is the thing. But anyway, there you go.
Where are you in London?
Westminster. So yeah,
Oh,
not far from the
wow.
Houses of Parliament as it happens. So you know.
Really? Do you actually live in Westminster?
I do. Yes. Yes.
Wow, how cool is that?
I got to tell you, Mark is a pretty fascinating bloke with some pretty fascinating contacts.
This is all a huge build-up
Is
here.
it
I think
true,
I better
Mark,
sort of
that
quick
you were
knowledge.
a member of the Bullingdon Club?
I knew a lot of
Not
people.
throwing
in
any
the Bully.
googlies.
I knew a lot of people in the Bully, but no, I wasn't actually in the Bullingdon Club. No, and you know, I mean, my face was not fit for that. But you know, I know
I'm
people.
being rude,
I know,
but you do know Boris, don't you? You know
I
a
do,
certain
yeah.
Boris Johnson.
I do. Yeah. You
Is
get
he a
some-
neighbour?
We've got some interesting things to talk about tonight, chaps.
no, he's not a neighbour. No, I've had a few in my road. I've had a number of MPs live and stuff like that. You know, there's a house just down the road, which is a government house, and like you know, various people sort of stay there because in the Division Bell area, which the listeners won't know that it's all to do with voting. The MPs, the legislators have to trek in to vote on laws and stuff, and you need to be really close to the Parliament to do that. So it has to, that's why I get so many MPs living down the street. Not Boris.
Huh.
Yeah.
Were you
So
at
they didn't have
Westminster School?
farmers to vote.
No.
Weren't at Westminster School.
No. Again, I know people who went to that school, but no, that wasn't me. No.
Fair enough.
Well,
You live there now.
before we get into Gary. Gary is our US political correspondent, and Gary is now going to give us a précis of what's going on at the moment with this. It sounds like a last gasp of the Obama regime.
This is great. I want to hear the chickens as well. Can we hear the chickens?
Hold on, chickens. Hold on, this is chicken.
Hey,
Listen to this cock.
My chicken impression is far more accurate than yours, Olly.
No, that's crap.
That just sounds like a sort of half-cocked
And
cock.
he does.
So to speak.
That's better. That's a healthy cock.
That's a cock without his balls, isn't it? It's like
Oh no, that's a
it-
intact.
No.
I can't hear the cock. He sounds like he's off in the distance doing a bit of a wander. He needs to come closer to the microphone.
Oh.
The show is
You know
going
what, Mark?
downhill
I'll tell
very
you what,
fast
we've
or
got a
uphill.
No, the U.S.
DNC.
expels 35 Russian
in
diplomats.
New York or wherever the HQ is. They're still terribly upset.
Very
Liberals.
upset.
Obama, what's he doing, Gary? What's this deal with Israel? He seems to be all of a sudden. Why didn't he do this years ago? I thought he was
Wait,
promising
Israel or Russia?
change, and he didn't seem to do a lot. And now he seems to be throwing his toys out the pram.
Yeah, it's well, he's talking about how American diplomatic employees all over Europe and in Russia are being harassed. And this is the first I've heard of any of this. But you know, they're saying, "Oh yes, this has been going on for the last 2 years, and we've had it." And so now, in light of the what they're claiming is Russian interference in our election this last month, they're closing the New York and Maryland Russia compounds and kicking out 35 Russian diplomats. Like, those compounds will be closed as of noon tomorrow.
So but Trump's just going to reverse that. This is executive order, yeah, presidential order. And so presumably when
exactly.
Trump comes in,
This is just
but Republicans are actually backing Obama on this, aren't they? And that's kind of odd, no?
well, just anything to cause chaos now, so that when Trump comes in and officially gets into office, he can say, "All right, no. Let's stop this and seem like a reasonable human being." And Obama's playing right into his hands. I have no idea what Obama's doing, other than trying to save face for having lost the election. So,
Mark, what's your take on that?
Well, you can say it's a smart move in this sense only, which is that, Mr. Trump's now going to have to decide what he's going to do. Is he going to lift the sanctions on the Russian intelligence
Well,
agencies?
surely he will.
And if he does that, then we've got the Republicans in Congress, as we're saying, calling for a public investigation. So if he does lift the sanctions, it could be said that he's going to go against what the
You
Republicans
think
are
that
saying
this hacking claim
and
is
the CIA thinks.
verifiable?
I'm not a security expert, thank God,
Sure.
so I don't know.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, but
I mean,
either way, then something's happened. We know that something's happened here. Things have been hacked. So how it happened or
have
whatever.
they?
Then
I mean, for all we know, the DNC released it to distract away from the Clinton Foundation.
okay, fair enough. But but certainly there is, for whatever something has been going on. People are saying. So how do you respond to that? Whether it's right or not. So now Obama's given his response. Now the ball's in Trump's court to what he does from here. And I agree with Gary to a large degree. It's like it's a strange move, but but having said all that, then well, what does Trump do? And that I don't really know.
I mean, are we being naive? Everybody spies on everybody. I mean, Merkel complained about the US 3 years ago or something.
Well, then there's that audio from Hillary Clinton from back in 2006 talking about the Palestinian elections and how pushing for that was a mistake on our part and that we should have done something to ensure the outcome. And
did you see
nearly won the presidency?
Did you see the Netanyahu interview today? In response to the kind of move by John Kerry and Obama. I mean, that was quite interesting. I mean, it was sort of very much kind of like Israel is for peace and democracy and in all this sort of stuff, and then he basically just it was almost like a drop the mic moment, he kind of drops the mic and walks off stage. I mean, I personally don't trust Benjamin Netanyahu.
He's a thug.
The idea that states can coalesce basically Kerry was saying that he there's no way forward unless there are two completely independent states. I mean, Netanyahu basically tried to sort of glaze over all the kind of complex issues that exist in Israel right now. I mean, there is a sort of an apartheid. There is a sort of Arabs obviously do exist in Israel and do coexist, but there is an enormous amount of apartheid as well. I mean, it really boils down to the complexity behind the whole existence of the state of Israel and the fact that piece of land has been owned by so many different people for millennia. Who really does have the right to that land, and do the Jews really truly have the right to their own territory? I mean, it was
Well,
Judea.
you could say the same about the US, the Native Americans. I mean, you could say it.
Well, you can. It's and this is what makes it so horribly complicated. But at the end of the day, what it boils down to ultimately is religious differences. I mean, religion seems to me, and it seems to have become increasingly prevalent. Certainly from what I've read online in recent days, this sort of that religion just seems to divide us. I mean, the base root of the irony being that the base root of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam is all sort of Abrahamic, and so we do sort of share a common denominator. It's just we've lost
we
ourselves.
Cock it up.
Well, it's my God is better than your God, and this sort of this is
very sad. It is tragic.
It is. People. I mean, religion is just. I've got nothing against people practicing faith. That is their
Mark,
right.
this is Piers, by the way. Yeah, he goes on a bit.
No,
well, yeah.
My co-host.
I mean,
I wasn't expecting him to be on this week. We were hoping he was doing panto.
Let Mark speak, Olly, for crying.
Mark, go on.
No, I take this. I mean, religion and politics have been mixed up for years. You're surely right, Piers. That, whatever the rights or wrongs of the situation, people will say, God's on my side, so I'm right anyway. It's going to be the case. It doesn't matter whether you're the Arabs or the Israelis, and you're going to say that, and that's the case. But what I think is really interesting here is actually the fact that we've got, the last gasp kind of the Obama administration. It's coming towards the end of its run. So, here we are with the very blunt words from Kerry talking about what's happening, denouncing the Israel for, all the things that are going on. I know some of the Republicans have said some stuff too, but also the same with Russia. It's, they're on the way out, so they're really, doing the most retaliatory possible action that's been done in decades. And
guys, hold on, just Mark,
like
one sec. This is what Kerry said. This is what Kerry said. It's Can you hear that?
No.
I bet it's on the body, Mark.
Wait.
It will never have true peace with the...
No, hold on. Here we go. This is it.
Now, one thing we do know. If Israel goes down the one-state path, it will never have true peace with the rest of the Arab world. And I can say that with certainty.
That's strong.
The Arab countries have made clear that they will not make peace with Israel without resolving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. That's not where their loyalties lie. That's not where their politics are.
Absolutely. That's
strong
a great quote. Yeah, and it really is. But the thing is that these are very strong statements. On whether we're talking about Russia, which I mentioned there again, or whatever. And now what's going to happen? Because to a certain degree, with great respect to them, the Obama administration is over. He's been a lame duck president for a little while, you could argue, when especially when Trump's been elected, and it's the new man coming in who's going to take over, and he could presumably reverse all of this stuff and just say, well, I don't agree.
And says he will. Well, with Israel he does, and the UN. I mean, talking about pulling out of the UN entirely now. Really, really strong words on the UN.
Yeah. I don't know. It's it's the old Chinese curse, isn't it? May you live in interesting times.
I mean,
everybody says that about the period.
Take on a completely different theme. We should kind of maybe get back into Hey, Piers, give us a song. Give us a sing-song from Scrooge, mate.
What? You want me to sing?
Come on, for God's sake. You've had a whiskey, haven't you? I know you've had a whiskey tonight.
I have had a whiskey. Yeah, I've had a couple of whiskeys. If the poor have to eat, let them beg upon the street or apply at the workhouse door. If they refuse to earn, then let them learn what a prison's for. I abhor how they whine, how they want whatever's mine. Why should I give a thing for free? Let them beg till they're blue, it has nothing to do with me. I say let them die and decrease the surplus population. Good afternoon.
Piers, man, that's awesome.
A round of applause.
Very nice.
That was
you have just 5 people. I mean, I think I know what it is. That they all knew that this show's going to be on, so that they all said they can stay at home and well, listen to this.
That must be that, Mark. Yeah.
Yeah, Piers. They just didn't want to take you away from us for a third week in a row. That's all it is.
Really good.
That was what I was
put out a
saying
big social media campaign to get your show canceled tonight, so that we could have you back.
Well, there you go. Yeah, thanks, Gary.
We're here for you. We're here to support you.
Oh, thanks, man. I mean, it's been fun. It's actually a version of a Christmas Carol written by a chap called Alan Menken, and it ran for about 10 years in Madison Square Gardens, and they had a sort of gala night on the 19th of December, which is when the night we opened in London, and they had it on in a major theatre in the West End, and we sort of coincided with that. But we are the sort of British premiere of this particular musical version of A Christmas Carol in the UK. So I went on the old telly box and.
So you weren't playing the back end of a horse?
Well, no. Funnily enough, no. Yeah,
I told everybody last week that you were playing the back end of a horse, mate.
There's no horses in this one. No, strangely enough, I don't know
That's
why.
Great,
this should be a horse.
Voice, mate.
It's not a panto as such. It's more of a kind of musical.
Yeah, sure.
So
It's Christmas Carol, musical
Christmas-
version, isn't it?
Exactly.
Ebenezer
And
Scrooge.
I'm not playing the kind of the cliched version of Scrooge. I'm sort of playing somebody more my age. Somebody,
What, even
around.
older?
Well, Scrooge is always depicted as this sort of
And basically drunk.
curmudgeon, and quite frankly, the likelihood is he would have been a man in his 40s, early 50s, and so I'm, well, since I'm in my late 40s, I'm trying to play it a little bit more true to form, so the bar humbugs and stuff aren't sort of delivered with such a sort of cliched grimace, of an old cantankerous sort of bent over double man. I'm sort of more, standing upright, sort of just being sort of cold and calculated, really, sort of the sort of like the modern day banker, really, the sort of the kind of sociopathic investment banker that we're sort of more party to in contemporary times. So that's the way I'm playing it. And
Gary, have you ever done any panto?
That's actually far more frightening than the old bent over curmudgeon. Is the capable bank executive Scrooge.
Exactly. Yeah. No, yeah. It is, and hopefully it's giving the audience something a little bit different to sort of to get their teeth around. A slightly different interpretation of what it would be all about.
Like the Bill Murray version.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, I like quite Scrooged or no.
That was it.
Yeah.
Something like that. I can't remember. Anyway, we've gone off
Bill
topic.
Murray, he's cool.
Enough about my bloody theatre. I mean,
yeah, for God's sake. Right. So today's theme, Celebrity Death 2016.
Oh yeah.
And not the tabloid. Mark.
Yeah.
This is your subject.
My specialty subject. Yes.
Yes.
Actually, Mark, sorry, forgive me. I don't know anything about you. Can you tell me what you're actually doing now? I mean, like you were working with Olly. You had the pleasure of working with Olly at Bloomberg, but I mean, and you're living in Westminster, so you're in the throng of things. What are you actually up to these days?
Oh, look at my Wikipedia page, dear boy. But no, anyway, for those who haven't, whatever. I edit this magazine called Dante, which it is available in the US. Actually, it's like we used to be available in a lot of US stores, and then we came out of them, but we're starting to go back again now. So you will get it. You find it online as well. Apart from that,
a reference to Dante's Inferno?
Magazine.com.
Yeah, that's right. It's supposed to be. I didn't set it up in the first place, but I've just sort of followed on from that from a founder, Massimo Garvo, who's a novelist, lives in Italy, and it was to do with like the Renaissance man or woman or something like that. It covers all stuff, to do with the head or the heart and things. So that's how the Dante came about from that, and it causes confusion. I tell you, I was in a store the other day and I couldn't find it on the shelves, and I say to a shelf stacker, "Have you got Dante magazine?" And she looks at me blankly and she says, "Anti magazine." So no, not anti-magazine. And I was going to say, well, this is like the Renaissance poet, and I thought, no, I won't go there. She won't get it.
Exactly. Do you know what? Did you say? Do you know what purgatory is? I mean, the image of Dante's Inferno depicts the sort of journey through purgatory, doesn't it? I mean, that's what it's all about.
We have a section on the front called Divine Comedy where we actually break it in. We have, 3 different stories of all different sorts. So we have a bit of heaven, a bit of hell, and a bit in between, and we choose some really wacky stories to go in that. So that's.
I think Dante works as a title. I think it's great. I think.
Oh, great! Well,
very evocative.
Yeah, I'm glad you like it. There's some other people who, don't, but they say, well, what are you alongside? And there are magazines on both sides of the water which do some of the lifestyle stuff, like, Monocle and people like that. But we hope we're better than that.
Are you sort of competing with Private Eye? Sort of that sort of satirical sort of take on news and current affairs?
Not really, no, actually. I mean, we do have a little bit of satirical stuff in the Divine Comedy, but it's more lifestyle and arts and things. That's mainly what it's about. Yeah, it's got
bright, Piers.
It's what?
Bright. You wouldn't understand.
I don't doubt that for a minute. I mean, I'm gonna have to pick a copy up and peruse its pages. You can
get it at Smith's.
Can you? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, that's kind of
in the
cool.
US. I don't know.
It's a very cool thing to be doing.
But Mark has got a background and a passion for music. Mark, tell us about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I write about music for Forbes and people like that, as a contributor to them. So, I was watching this year. We've had so many people die, and the list of celebs this year has been absolutely remarkable, as everyone's been saying. And, I'm watching this with like sort of some horror actually, because, writing them up for Forbes and things and all the obituaries. And like, whoop, there's another one gone who I've, interviewed or I know even like, and, I'm just thinking, what is this? Am I some kind of mortician or an undertaker writing this stuff up? But,
Catalyst for the Grim
Do you
Reaper.
do you think it's been particularly bad this year, Mark?
Well,
In terms
I
of
must say,
the
yeah. I mean, in terms of like the big names, then there are, I'm sure.
Bowie was a
like,
huge name, and Prince,
yeah,
and George Michael.
George Michael. I mean, Rick Parfitt. I would say, even Greg Lake or someone like that.
Did you ever interview any of those names?
George Michael. I only met up briefly at a press conference. He was running late for the press conference that I was saying on another radio station the other day. Like, he was so late for it, and he said, like, "I'm really sorry, guys, I'm late. I've had a hard day." Referencing one of his songs. And we went, ha ha ha, and then he kept on doing that. Like, he said, I've been living hand to mouth, and all these titles of his songs. He was just having a laugh. But I liked him. How sometimes you go along to a press conference, news conference, and you find that the star is being nice to the journalist because, like, he or she wants to get a good write-up or good review and that kind of stuff. And I've really got the impression that George wasn't like that. That's just how he was. Well,
I'm assuming that your interview with him was post his sort of Sony debacle. I mean, he kind of had a massive falling out with his record label, didn't he? And in the same way that Prince did. And
yeah,
I mean, a lot of that was sort of politically motivated. I mean, he was very pro-Palestinian.
Michael Jackson did too.
And I think if you're a big voice and a big name, you have political sway, and obviously I think there's a lot of pressure, political pressure put on big companies like Sony to steer policy in a certain direction. And if
and
you have various artists that are sort of wayward and going down their own route, and not sort of towing the company line, then ultimately the proverbial cat hits the fan, and
yeah. Well, it certainly is true. People have concentrated on George Michael as being this like sort of soul pop, sophisticated singer and stuff like that, and the sexy things that he did. But he actually did have quite a political undercurrent. Those from long enough memory remember when he was with Wham, he did Wham Rap. And some of the other records, like Listen Without Prejudice, he was very much putting himself in the background, and he was saying, it's not about me as a star, it's about everybody. People are people, we've got to treat people fairly. And there was a sort of political thing which people actually kind of missed some of the time. And then he did that record which is all about Bush's dog. Can you remember that one where it's like Tony Blair and Yo Blair and all that stuff?
Yeah, Wag the Dog, no?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, exactly.
Which was anti-war. It was an anti-war record.
Yeah, but that's
basically he did a Lennon.
To do that stuff. Yeah,
he did a Lennon over Iraq.
Yeah,
did he? Right. Okay.
I can't help but thinking, what would have happened, if Lennon had been alive? But anyway, we can all have that,
sure.
And what happened to
I
John,
mean, it wasn't,
Yeah, it'd be fascinating. But, even so, there was a political edge to George of the others there too.
Yeah, no, you do wonder whether or not that had a negative impact on his overall career, because, I mean, in the recent times, I mean,
well,
I think probably...
not,
but... I mean, he'd made his money, he's made his fortune. It wasn't like he needed anything else to survive comfortably. It was just, he was so suppressed by those trying to control him, that he sort of ended up sort of taking a back seat. And I think this is probably one of the reasons that led to his ultimate downfall. This sort of, no longer had a real purpose in life. I mean, he was sort of just existing, and for an artistic person like him, not being able to sort of express yourself in the media that you've been, become famous through, because you're basically being suppressed, by those that have an agenda and a line, then that is I think ultimately what must have led to his depression and the sort of excess that ultimately led to his demise. It seems like the logical explanation for George Michael's death.
George Michael got me sacked.
Yeah, that's right. I didn't know whether you wanted to bring that up or not.
Yeah, bloody got me sacked.
Oh, now this is a story we need to hear.
No, how did this happen? Yeah. Do
What
tell
a-
Do you
all.
want me to
spill
tell
the
it, Ollie, or do you want to tell it?
Yeah, no, you tell it because I'm
Whichever one
gonna
makes
cry.
Ollie sound more silly.
Well,
Why don't you
Ollie
tell it?
sort of Ollie
tell you
was
this is a sad story.
Ollie was going places with his journalistic career. I mean, when he was at Bloomberg, things started to sort of kick into place for him, and he got his own show, and he was very irreverent and different at Bloomberg, which he was constantly at loggerheads with his editor, who was much more kind of conservative, and he got away with a hell of a lot. And actually, everybody used to down tools at Bloomberg, and right, Ollie's on, stop everything. We're going to watch Ollie because this is crazy stuff, And it was very, very avant-garde and different for Bloomberg, and the fact that he managed to get away with it for so long was extraordinary. But then he left Bloomberg and got a job at MTV as a presenter at MTV, and things were really.
No, I didn't, mate. I was a few days away from it.
Well, yeah,
I wrote this story.
You went to New York and put on roller skates and
story.
sort of, you bought a wardrobe and were competing with Mike Bloomberg for cab.
No, that had nothing to do with it. So later on, yeah, I was at MTV and I was about to present for them, and I was head of news for a bunch of territories, which was all a bit of a laugh, really, and just writing. And I wrote this story. It was just after the toilet thing in California or wherever it was. He'd been caught with a cop, and so this story was something along the lines of George Michael might top the bill at some festival this year. Last month he was down wherever with his pants down. They're hoping that this time he'll pull in the crowds instead. And this story, George Michael's manager heard it or something, and basically it was the boys from MTV. Mark, you know that lyric, that wow,
Yeah.
and it was it.
Well, yeah, you basically, wrote a satirical piece that got aired. Your editor sanctioned it, and it got aired on MTV.
Well, no, I was the editor. That was.
Well, George's people got on the blower and were like, "Well, what the hell are you doing? We helped set this channel up. What are you doing, slagging George off? And you were used as a scapegoat, and then.
But you know what? I mean, this week I've been branded as right-wing press writing that kind of stuff because that was, you're so anti-LGBTXYZ or something. I mean, for crying out loud. I mean, the guy went and pulled his cock out in a bloody loo. I mean, actually, you tend to do that in a loo, don't you? But then he did something else with it in an extravagant way. It's a bit naughty.
He brought a rooster into the bathroom?
He
was.
Extravagant way. I love it. That's a beautifully euphemistic way of describing what was going on. But I'm like,
actually, I apologize to the FCA or something. I don't think we're supposed to say cock, but it's because we've got cocks.
Exactly.
We're just loaded with them. They're huge.
We're talking about the ones that come with vin. It's like anyway. Yeah,
but MTV was basically politically correct, and they were thinking of maybe livening it up, but they decided against it.
Well, they did, unfortunately, because I mean, I remember seeing this report, Ollie in some flash suit that MTV had paid for on rollerblades in Central Park.
That was Bloomberg, mate.
Was that Bloomberg? Oh, right. Okay. I'm getting it all wrong then. I mean, so you sort of would just
get the story right, Piers. Come on.
That's a long time ago.
So anyway,
Ollie ended
that.
up as head of news.
I'll tell you. Hold on. But never mind that. My point, because actually George Michael did change my life. Yeah, I saw this headline in the Guardian. George Michael changed the toilet incident changed my life. It was written more poetically than that. And this guy said how it had changed his life in his own way. And it changed mine as well, yeah. I've got to tell you, though, I thought I loved George Michael's music. Not the Wham stuff. I didn't like any of that. Careless Whisper I thought was rubbish too, to be honest with you. But the older and all that, Jesus to a Child, all that, it just beautiful, no? I think he was an amazing bloke, and he was a sensitive guy, and I wonder what he knew and what people like him who just kind of they're not engineered. They just come out of nowhere and they take the industry by storm. But then they're still their own people. They're not, if you like, encapsulated into the establishment, if you like, in the way that, say, somebody like Bob Geldof, you could argue, has been. People like Prince as well, another example. I wonder, Mark, what do you say about that, Mark? I'm getting conspiratorial now.
I'm getting, you're quite right too. I know that's a good idea sometimes. What I was going to say is that I must say that I've actually got time for some of the Wham stuff. I really, really do. You know.
I agree. Wake me up before you go. I thought it was a cracking tune.
Well, yeah, actually that happened. I was on, dare I say, BBC 5 Live the other day, and they played that and said, well, you know, what do you think? And I had to say that, like, you know, as a sort of Motown pastiche or whatever, it's not at all bad. It's the sort of thing that Motown probably should have been doing around then, but you know, they hadn't, you know, got the songwriting skills to do that stuff. So there we go. As for the conspiracy thing, I think it got a valid point in the sense that, like, you know, obviously he was his own man, he was doing his own stuff. So, you know, I'm not suggesting that's got anything to do with his death, but I'm sure it meant that, like, you know, he was not able to express himself perhaps as freely as he might have done in some ways, and he did, you know, obviously with the various sad problems that he had with drink and drugs, as we know now, that got in the way of his, you know, huge talent. So, you know, we have a wonderful record. You know, I do like some of the later stuff, like, you know, the older and all that, but I think Faith is still an outstandingly good album, and I just really wish he had been in a state where he could have carried on making albums like Faith rather than, you know, doing things in toilets on one other side of the water, or falling out of cars, or crashing into things and all that stuff. You know,
he reminds me a bit.
And it's so sad, you know. But one
His
thing I would
death,
say,
Mark, in a way, does it? It reminds me a little bit of that of Freddie Mercury.
Yeah, there is
equally, you know, young, so much still to do, and equally.
Freddie was older than George, wasn't he? I mean, George was only 53. I mean, he really was.
Freddie was young too, no?
George did an amazing Freddie Mercury
was young
tribute.
too. Mark, how old was Freddie Mercury when he died?
He did. He did one of the best ever done, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I have to look that one up. I don't know how old Freddie was. I don't know whether
I do remember Freddie. I was working at ITN, and we put out a headline. I was doing the late night news, and we put it out saying, you know, Queen lead singer Freddie Mercury, and we used to listen to the calls coming into the press office, and there was some old curmudgeon who used to call up on a regular basis, and he was on saying, "What is this lead story? Queen lead singer? What has the Queen got to do with it?" And he carried on ringing up the news desk then, sort of like arguing the case. And, you know, I took the call, actually, not realizing it was going to be this guy, and, you know, thinking it was like a genuine call. And I said, well, you know, you might not have heard of Freddie Mercury, but I just suggest you go to the news agents tomorrow morning and look at the front page of every newspaper, and you're going to have Freddie Mercury dies on it. And he said, I'm sure I won't. So I hope he did, because that's exactly what he would have said.
He's living in a box somewhere.
Yeah.
But now Prince said some very interesting things. Piers, what do you know about that?
Well, not much, but I did see an interview with him where he was beginning to address the issue of sort of geoengineering and chemtrails and things like this, and so. You know, whatever your stance on these issues is, you know, I mean, I think there have been various sort of militaristic type of individuals in the States. I can't name names because they don't come to my mind right now. But I have seen various. It does seem that there is something going on in the atmosphere. Does seem to be some sort of atmospheric manipulation going on to some degree, and what the purpose of that is, I'm not entirely sure. But it was something that Prince seemed to have become acutely aware of and felt, you know, compelled to speak out about. And again, you see, we're mirroring, you know, the sort of stance that George Michael took, you know, with Prince. And again, you see this sort of a very similar recipe in terms of, his career. You know, two extraordinarily talented musicians who sort of refused to toe the line and play ball. Who were then sort of, you saw this sort of dramatic war take place with their labels and the people representing them, where, you know, Prince sort of refused to, you know, he was going around calling himself the artist formerly known as Prince for a while, and then kept changing his name, which was very much a sort of political statement about how he felt. You know,
I'll tell you what Prince was talking about. He was talking particularly about chemtrails. He was an advocate. He was an activist. Talking about chemtrails, and I'll read you some of his lyrics here. While the helicopter circles and the theory is getting deep, think they're spraying chemtrails over the city while we sleep. From now on, I'm staying awake, so you can call me a dreamer too. Wake up, wake up. Anyway.
Yeah, we did, and then he went on the telly and was interviewed about it, and I think, you know, as a result, you know, because he was a very influential guy, he followed by a lot of people.
He talked about depopulation as well and New World Order, Illuminati.
Oh, that's
I don't know. Yeah, maybe it's got nothing to do with this.
If you start going down that route and you have influence and the capacity to reach a lot of people, then obviously, yeah, that's a sort of the level of voice. I mean, you know, the four of us now, you know, we probably have some listeners out there, you know, who are digesting what we're saying and sort of taking it on board, but generally speaking, you know, we don't have the kind of marketplace that Prince or George Michael have. And if you start to talk about some of the sort of you know, more esoteric niche areas of understanding, you know, that the world has to offer, and start to mainstream that stuff, you know, then the powers that be, the status quo, the establishment, all the rest of it, start to sort of take umbrage at that, and they think, well, this guy's becoming a liability. You know, we need to do something about this. How can we, you know, counter, you know, these very public declarations of the strange, and we have to go about it by cutting them off, you know. So record labels ditch their clients, you know, or go to war with them, and then we end up with the situation where Prince and George Michael, for the better part of the last decade of their lives, you know, were very quiet and very much you know, in the background. And George, you know, went on.
Yeah, but that was because George Michael was ill.
Well, no, I don't think it was. I think George became ill because he became he lacked purpose. You know,
Prince was ill. Prince was quite ill, wasn't he?
Was he? I don't know. I mean, was
quite a while.
He
No,
he was addicted to fentanyl.
Yeah.
That's pretty hardcore stuff.
You know, I don't know how far
50
you
times
can push
stronger than heroin.
Yeah, you're right, Gary. I mean, that is strong stuff, but you know, I'm just wondering how far you can push some of these conspiracy theories. Whether we're just, you know, putting two and two together and getting six on some of this stuff to do it. By the way, I've had a friend who sent an email over saying that Freddie Mercury died rather younger than you might think, younger than George Michael. Like
was he in his 40s?
Yeah, 45.
45.
Yeah.
No, was he really?
Yeah,
He
absolutely.
God, I didn't know that. He was
Well,
younger
he
than
died
me.
about 30 years ago. 28 years ago, something like that. 27.
Yeah,
Oh my-
1991. Yeah.
I did actually see Queen live. I saw Freddie play at Nebworth Park when I was 17. They did a massive gig, the It's a Kind of Magic tour. And there was a whole afternoon of legendary bands. There was all sorts of you know, stuff going on all afternoon. Status Quo played there as well, and all sorts. And yeah, I mean, and I saw Freddie. He was ill at the time. I think it was you know, just after he must have realized that he you know, that he had HIV, but he was still very much full of life, and it was an amazing gig. Extraordinary.
Yeah,
now, hold on,
yeah,
because
he really could hold the audience in the palm of his hand.
Oh my God,
yeah,
he was an amazing performer.
totally.
I mean, I've seen other big bands. I've seen U2 live as well, and I mean, Bono is pretty impressive.
Bono, mate.
Bono or whatever. Bono, but Bono, whatever.
Granddad.
But I saw them at Wembley, the previous incarnation of Wembley, not the new arena. But I mean, but yeah, back in the day, and yeah, he was very powerful as a lead and big voice. But actually, Freddie was something else. He really was.
Are you looking forward, Piers, to the reunion concert for the tribute concert to George Michael that Elton John and Bob Geldof are going to put on?
No, I didn't even know they were doing it, actually.
So he wasn't looking forward to it, but he knows about it now.
I
I don't know. I've seen, I'm afraid, hundreds, if not thousands of gigs. And I would have to say that Queen was one of the better bands I saw. I thought they were really tight. Obviously, Mercury's got a fantastic voice, and he was, holding the crowd there. And the others are great as well. I mean, Brian May is a somewhat underrated guitarist, I think, actually. But the whole band was like.
I interviewed him once. He was really annoyed with me.
What did you do, Olly? What did you do?
Well, I did the old, the old journalist trick of starting out asking questions about the music and, the guitar or something, and saying it was a real shame about Freddie and all that. Of course it was. And then I asked him about Anita Dobson. He just sort of got together,
You didn't ask him
and he
about
saw right through it. He saw right through it. He saw right through me. He cut me to the quick. He said, I can't believe what you just did. I thought you were a nice bloke and you're just another horrid journalist or something," you said.
You were a horrid journalist back in the day. I mean, I remember going to the BAFTAs with you one year, and we were surrounded by all these sort of, luminary actors, and it was the year that Emma Thompson had won Best Screenplay for Sense and Sensibility, and we saw Joan Collins, and Joan Collins had been in court, being sued by her publicist for she'd been given some massive advance, monetary advance for writing a couple of novels, and she turned in a couple of manuscripts, or one or something, and it had been so substandard that her publishers had taken her to court to reclaim the huge advance they'd given her. And I spotted Joan Collins in this sort of foray and said, Olly, go and interview Joan. So Olly goes over and rams the microphone in Joan Collins' face and says, Joan, Emma Thompson's just won a Best Screenplay for Sense and Sensibility. Why don't you get her to turn one of your books into a film? and Joan said, quite sort of sternly, because they're not good enough. Walked off.
Oh, poor old girl.
I thought that was classic.
Didn't her sister die this year?
Yeah, no, not this year. No, that was I think the year before. I don't think that was a 2000.
Yeah.
Now hold on, Mark. I need to take issue with you over something, because you were saying there's not so much. Okay, this conspiracy theory falls through, but what do you know about MK Ultra?
I think you know rather more than me, Olly, and you can expand to explain that. But you just, how far are you going to push it? Are you going to sort of seriously say that, because some of these stars have passed on, or whatever, that they've expressed some political opinion, is the suggestion being made that there is something suspicious about their death?
No, there isn't. There isn't.
All right. Let's change it to the assassination of the Russian ambassador in Turkey. The individual who apparently carried out the assassination. I mean, I think, anybody who's bothered to actually look into that case, it all looks a bit sort of weird and suspicious and strange, and kind of like the footage is just sort of looks so scripted and kind of bizarre. And the guy seems to be on some sort of autopilot. But MK Ultra to me is sort of militaristic sort of brainwashing. I mean, that is what it is, and it's what the whole Bourne Identity kind of trilogy or 4, 5, however many films they've made with the Bourne sequences. It's all about this kind of this ability to be able to break somebody down and then sort of reduce them to a state where you can sort of start to manipulate them and program them. I don't know whether this stuff's real or not. I have no idea, but I mean, it's certainly something that's been prevalent in our imaginary world.
Hey, Piers, Are you familiar with the concept of stochastic terrorism?
No, go on, hit us with it.
So, stochastic terrorism, otherwise known as terrorism by remote control, it's something that has been practiced by Fox News and hardcore right-wing conservative media for a number of years now, and the idea is just keep putting out the message of, man, somebody really ought to take that person out, and just fill in the blank, whatever target you want to paint on somebody. You keep talking about how that person is evil and needs to be taken out until some unstable listener of yours decides to take you up on it and goes and shoots that person or what have you. It's
Yeah,
like,
I agree. That's just as a viable, alternative recipe. I mean, the degree of propaganda that exists in mainstream media now is absolutely extraordinary. I think anybody with a degree of intelligence who monitors and watches the media, despite your political bent, is aware now that the message, that the point message is repeated over and over again, and yeah, you're absolutely right. It may not be direct manipulation. It may be something more to do with, if we preach this message hard and fast enough, somebody,
the
someone
classic
hint.
the
I don't
classic
know. I
example of
honestly
that
don't know. I mean,
that's
this is all kind of
well,
rhetorical. I have
no,
no
I mean,
idea.
this is real stuff. Like with Bill O'Reilly back in the '90s, talking about Tiller, the baby killer, George Tiller, the abortion doctor, and he was just constantly pushing Tiller, the baby killer, until somebody went and killed
What is
George
Tiller the
Tiller.
baby killer?
He was an abortion doctor
Right.
back in the '90s, and somebody killed him because Bill O'Reilly kept pushing forth the narrative that he's this horrible,
Right.
horrible person who kills babies.
Yeah.
And that was like the
Good
classic
example.
example of stochastic terrorism. Murder
Mark,
by
what do you
remote.
think about that? Do you think that the media is, well, the MSM has lost an enormous amount of credibility off the back of this election campaign, surely, and indeed with things like Brexit.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's certainly there are concerns that people would have, and they've had for decades, haven't they, about like, whether there's some kind of like sort of force behind what the media is saying. But you have to start thinking that if you do that, then to what degree are you saying that, like, that the media is therefore reporting one line or another? In the US election, then there was plenty on both sides.
That's right.
The Trump side would argue very strongly that the media was not helping his case and hasn't helped his case. And
Is it not fair to say that if you like, there was more Clinton support in the media, but that's because there's more, if you like, money pushing that way than towards the right?
Maybe, but I mean, one thing I would say is, as a journalist and a member of the media, that I'm very concerned about what might happen in the future, because if it's used as an excuse for whatever degree, that like there's therefore going to be some clampdown on press freedom, especially in the USA, then I should be extremely worried about that. We need to have more press freedom.
That's the other big story. This with the NDAA, this week.
Yeah.
Can you go over and explain that, because this is a really, really important story, no?
It is, but I do go back to the point that, like, however you see the non-disclosure of whatever happens in the future, it would be lamentable if the basis of our democracy, for most decent countries on both sides of the water, or whatever, is the freedom of speech and of expression, and if there's some kind of a way that's being reduced, then that is extremely dangerous. And so when I'm looking at these conspiracy theories, I think it's great. Yes, let's say that there's some kind of conspiracy going on. Yes, there's some kind of stochastic get my teeth in terrorism going on. But nonetheless, if the result of that is that, like, there are some controls put on what's the New York Times or anyone else can say, then I'm against it.
Yeah,
I agree. I mean, there is an enormous amount of crap online, and it takes an enormous body of it's so difficult to differentiate between the real and the unreal now. I mean, with modern techniques, I mean, so many things can be manipulated. It's so difficult to know what is and isn't the truth. I mean, searching for the truth now has become, I think, harder than in any point in history. It is, although, I mean,
about fake news, mate.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I love the BBC for much of its content, but I've really started to wane in terms of my enthusiasm for the BBC's news content because they're
pure propaganda.
Well, they are very sort of pro One Direction, and you only have to listen to the way they structure words and sentences. Everything they do is designed to orchestrate a certain sensibility.
Yeah. Piers, mate, I'll tell you that was fascinating. I'll tell you, I was loving that. We're gonna have to we got a break coming up, and we'll talk more about this in a minute. About 4 minutes or something. Promos.
Cool.
Yeah, you're listening to Revolution Radio. If you like our stuff, please donate, yeah? Go to the website, donate, give us some money. Thank you.
Hello? Is there anybody there? Hello?
Oh, yes, we're
Hello?
all here.
Oh, good.
Hey,
what
again.
the hell? Where's Olly?
Well,
Mark, are you there?
Where he's gotten off to.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, maybe Olly got cut off. Well, let's the three of us carry on. In his absence. I mean,
a bit of a pause there. So anyway, I'm sure he'll be back again.
There was. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe he's gone off to the lavatoire in Spain somewhere, or he's out on his balcony smoking a giant doob. I don't know. So how long did you work with Olly at Bloomberg, Mark?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not very sure. It would have been probably a couple of years. I was doing stuff on Bloomberg Television, and he was doing things on radio as well, and that sort of stuff. And yeah, he was kind of a loose cannon, and I mean that in the most complimentary way. That's the thing. I remember when the Oasis record came out, the third one, and Be Here
Which
Now.
one was that?
Be Here Now. It's like arguably like one of the worst things I did. It was like kind of a bit of a disappointment, although not totally. I've still got time for some. But Olly was doing his show on that, and he starts off with listening to it, and it starts off with Do You Know What I Mean? And it's got that wonderful plane flying over on the beginning, and Olly says something like, which is again not suitable for a Bloomberg radio at all, like I can hear a expletive deleted plane flying over here, and then he does that. The next track is just like it's not very good, but the second track on an album often isn't, and then by which time, then when you get to Magic Pie or whatever, then Olly's saying this baby's going to be coming to you big all summer, and just knocks the music up and just bangs into it, which is not the sort of thing that normally happened on Bloomberg Radio at all.
Not at all. I mean, he was a kind of totally irreverent sort of a breath of fresh air on Bloomberg, really.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Ollie's back.
I think he's
are you back? Oh, you're back. Oh, well done. That was you had to have a loo break there. I think it was a major number.
These sponsor breaks get shorter and shorter. More people should be sponsoring Revolution Radio Freedom Slips, because when I take a pee, it takes a while. Yeah.
Well, dude, I mean, we covered for you. It was okay. I was here, with Gary.
After a little, pregnant pause. Hello.
Yeah, we had a bit of dead air, a tiny bit of dead air. I was like,
oh, well, that's good. Keep them guessing. That's what I say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who else has died this year then that's of interest?
Well, as I say, the people we've talked about, I talked about George Michael, and like the length of time I spoke to him was only a comparatively short time. David Bowie is like the beginning of the year, huge 69. Everyone knows, like, I mean, here's the man who, like, sort of, broke the pop mold and always did. But, I had a great pleasure of meeting him around the time he was doing Tin Machine. That's a side
Oh
project.
yeah,
Excellent.
gosh, yeah, that was back in the early mid '80s.
Yeah, and the thing about Bowie again is, like, he's was a fiercely intelligent man, without any shadow of a doubt. It's maybe you can go too far with this. There was one Australian paper who said at the time of Ziggy Stardust that who was one of the world's most intellectually brilliant men, currently using the LP as his medium. And
Well,
maybe
I'll tell you
perhaps
something,
going
Mark.
a little bit too far.
His death was poetic.
Absolutely, but that album came out, and I reviewed it for Art Info, and said, to my mind, it's one of his better albums. And there were some of the fans who said this is lazy journalism, and all the rest of that. And they're pointing that there are some good albums in between.
His PR must have been really pleased.
Well,
I mean,
I thought there was something going on. Definitely
that
something
was
going
some
on.
PR.
Yeah, the fact that it was, clearly. You look up, I mean, Heaven and all that stuff, and that video, and I didn't see it necessarily as being death. It was called Lazarus. I thought, maybe
that's right.
he's going to have a second birth or resurrection, but something in the Black Star, and I didn't actually guess correctly that.
Did you not think it was a bit macabre in the circumstances? I found it a little bit macabre.
Well, it was, but that's the whole point. I mean, like he was a true artist to the last.
But it wasn't the point, Piers. He didn't mean to die.
No, but he knew he was going to die, so he was making a mockery of his own death. I mean, this is the whole point. That video, that macabre video.
I thought his death had been a bit more sudden than that. It was cancer, though, wasn't it?
No, but he knew he was going to die. He
knew,
no and that was what gave him the.
So he really did design that.
Of course
sequence.
He did. Absolutely,
yes, I'm 100% sure of that. And he was also working on. Let's not forget, there's this musical which I've seen in London now, the Lazarus musical, and some of the bits of that in the plot line, it is clearly about an imminent death, and there's the man who fell to earth can live forever, or he can die, and that's the whole thing. And the fact that he'd written that not long before what happened, I think very clearly shows that, yes, he knew that he hadn't got long for this world, sadly. And that's the way he did it and the way he did. And
how old was he, Mark?
69. Yeah. So,
I mean, he looked remarkable for a man who had taken enough coke to kill about 100 elephants and had smoked.
And look at Keith Richards. He's just having a laugh, isn't he?
Keith must have the constitution of a concrete elephant. But Bowie. I mean, I remember seeing him interviewed years ago. I can't remember who was interviewing him, and somebody said, "Do you do anything to keep fit?" And the interviewer said, "Do you do anything to keep fit?" And he was like, "My body is a temple, sparking up a fag kind of thing, And it was sort of, he was very, he had a very kind of dark. Very kind of sarcastic and sense of humor, I think, and I think
he was right.
The whole point of Bowie's sort of final swan song, with this Lazarus project was that it was sort of mocking death. Really, it was like he knew he was about to meet his maker, and he was like, I'm going to.
Didn't he start out on Jerry Springer? When he was a teenager, and he was on one of them shows, and he was one of the kids that put his hands up and asked a question or something.
Oh, really?
Seriously,
What, Jerry Springer was one of the kids?
Yeah, about 5 years before or 10 even.
Really?
I was a massive fan. I listened to two things at school consistently through several terms, and one was Bowie, and the other was. I fear to say Dire Straits. I don't know why, but I had a whole term of early Bowie, and then the whole kind of Dire Straits stuff that was going on at the time. And yeah,
the early Bowie is, I mean, it's fantastic. I'm sort of ruling out the very earliest stuff like, Man of Words, Man of Music, the David Bowie. But when you get on to, The Man Who Sold the World, I quite like. And that was just such an extraordinary album because at the time he did it, there's this guy with really long hair wearing dresses, clean shaven, at the time when everyone else was making like sort of this hippy dippy, like sort of, Tyrannosaurus Rex or Nirvana music, the original Nirvana, I mean. And, he was doing something totally different in terms of looks. And the record was so heavy as well, width of a circle and stuff like that. It's almost heavy metal. You're thinking, what is going on here? Yeah,
he was a genius. I mean, I absolutely love his early work. I can listen to that forever.
Hunky Dory and Ziggy Stardust is still of all the albums I've ever heard.
Just fantastic. It's so awesome. It really is.
These guys wrote their own stuff. I mean, in the case of Elton John, he's got an amazing voice, and he's got a great voice, and he's a great pianist. But Bernie Taupin deserves the credit for all the lyrics, really, no? Or...
Well, yeah. I mean, Elton has written a few things, but I mean, he writes music rather than, and you can think of it that way.
Sure.
And the Billy Elliot stuff and all the rest of it, he's done stuff for that, and so he has done things. But but primarily, you wouldn't think of him as being a songwriter. You would think of it more for.
One thing I wanted to ask you, Mark, I wanted to ask you about this so-called Club of 27. Is that for real, or is that another sort of a myth, or what?
Well,
I think it's something of a marketing sort of thing or whatever. I mean, people have always talked about this, the Club of 27 and how it actually works out. And it's true that, over a period of time, then there have been people who've died at that age. And obviously we had, the Jimi Hendrix and stuff like that, the Jim Morrison and the Janis Joplin. Then some of this went away. It was only came back again when you had some more of the recent deaths where people started putting it back. Obviously with Nirvana, Kurt Cobain, and his mother's comment about I didn't want to join that stupid club, but even that's probably wrong because you might read about this. Some of their relatives died around that age, and it could be that she was referring to them rather than to Janis Joplin or whatever. But it came to be all the more important recently with what we've had with obviously Amy Winehouse, and she happened to die at 27. So.
And Jimi Hendrix died at 27 as well, did he? And
that's right.
Jim Morrison.
Jim Morrison, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
who
all
else?
of those. Oh gosh, so many of them.
That was it.
There's the guy from the Manic Street Preachers who went missing and has never been found again.
Really?
He
only went backstage.
Maybe he was abducted.
By Charlie.
That's where it starts to fall down.
Charlie, I'm on my way.
Yeah. How many of the Club of 27? Those are the big names. I mean, I'm scratching my head. I'm thinking there's Brian Jones, the Rolling Stones. He was 27 when he died as well.
Pretty big.
What did he die of? Was it heroin overdose?
He drove his Rolls Royce into a swimming pool.
Well, not quite. No, he drowned.
That was one of them, wasn't it? No.
The Rolls Royce thing was Keith Moon. Yeah, but
Keith Moon.
He didn't die. He drove from that. He drove from drinking himself to death. But
he just drove his Rolls Royce into a swimming pool. What a wonderful story.
Well, it's actually not quite true. That's referenced on the Oasis Be Here Now sleeve.
Yeah, that's right. It is.
But actually, he didn't drive it into a swimming pool. He drove it into a garden pool, and it was enough for it to sink. And he couldn't get the Rolls Royce out. And the guy who bought Keith Moon's house was told, actually, don't worry about it. In the garden pool, you'll find a Rolls Royce. It's it.
It's a permanent fixture, unless you want to pay a lot of money to get it taken.
Right,
that beats a gnome.
At 69, I can tell you this because I was writing about him not long ago. The coroner's report said that his death by misadventure. He drowned. More than likely, he was under the influence of something at the time, but that's why he died. The thought is it wasn't a suicide; it was just an accident in his pool.
Mind you, we're talking about previous deaths.
There's there if you want, guys.
Janis Joplin was another one.
Gary's tell me that somebody who drove their Rolls Royce into a pool was on something. I don't buy it.
Oh yeah, I mean Keith
beggars belief, Gary.
Yeah, that's a different story altogether. And Keith Moon died but after that incident, and as I say, he'd been on bottles of brandy a day. I can't remember from recollection how many I read that he was drinking every day of bottles of brandy. It was a fantastic amount. So
If it's more than two, I'll be very impressed.
it quite probably was. I mean, there was a wonderful story about how when he was staying in a hotel in New York City and decided that, he wanted to throw all the stuff out of his room. So he actually hired some of the local cab drivers and they blocked off the street so no one would get hurt. And then he proceeded to throw the television and, all the contents of the place out onto the street. Yeah, that's a true story.
Well, he was still sober enough to be able to sort of orchestrate some sort of reasonably, clinical version of anarchy, from his hotel window, which is great publicity, obviously, for the band.
Maybe he had a gopher to do it.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's totally hilarious.
Yeah.
Anyway,
we had a member of the Eagles died this year, and I mean the Eagles are famous for doing stuff. Joe Walsh and things like that, and a chainsaw used to chop up hotel furniture. But this year we had Glenn Frey died. The guy who wrote Hotel California and all that stuff.
Really?
As well. Yeah. That was.
There's a conspiratorial song.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Your alibis. What's the line on that? You can check out any time you like, but you can never leave. Followed by that
sounds like CNN.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the big networks have lost a lot of credibility these last few months. I mean, like their subscription, their reader volume is going down. I mean, you can name CNN, you can name MSNBC, you could name the BBC, you could name the Guardian. I mean, I always thought the Guardian. I've always quite liked the Guardian, but now they are so propaganda.
They're sending out a lot of mixed messages. I think what's most telling is the stories when they don't allow comments.
Yeah, I mean, you yourself have been a very active commenter, in the comment section.
I am. I'm getting like my old man.
I'm
getting to write to the Times.
Yeah, or the Telegraph or whatever. And you have told me on many occasions that they've kind of deleted your post.
Oh yeah.
And
I'll give you a good example. Was I don't know, 5, 6 years, 7 ago, talking about Bilderberg around the time when the Bilderberg meetings were going on. Just wanting to know, I'd like to know what they talk about. I mean, for example, Cameron had a chat with Kissinger, and then came out and said we won't release the minutes on what we discussed. Well, I think that's out of order because he's my PM, and I want to know what he was talking about. But anyway, so I was writing stuff about this on Telegraph when they were basically trying to ignore the subject, and they would moderate that so heavily. But a year or so later, after that, everybody else was talking about Bilderberg on Telegraph comments as well, and there was no point censoring anymore. And they actually started talking about it a bit more openly, and then laughing about it and joking about it, ridiculing it, and then they closed down comments altogether, and now all of their commentators went to Breitbart.
It is a bit weird, that whole Bilderberg thing. I mean, I know that it's an opportunity for world leaders to have an off-the-cuff chat, where they're not going to have to suffer I mean, they spend so much time, concentrating on what they're going to say to the general populace, and how they're going to word it. But it is an opportunity for world leaders to sort of talk off the cuff and off the record without fear of some sort of rebuttal. But at the same time,
does that strike anybody here as a good idea, though?
Well, yes and no. If I genuinely felt that the globalists had everybody's best interests at heart, and that having a free for all off the record was genuinely going to benefit that, then yeah, fair enough. But I don't. You see, I mean, I think the sort of corporatization of global corporatization has reached a sort of critical point. The banking crisis, the deregulation.
Globalization equates to greater slavery. I mean, you can see the evidence.
I mean, if you
see it in places like the United States, you see sweatshops in the US. I saw a story on Bloomberg. Yeah, so this is a very kind of establishment source, showing, illustrating with pictures these guys wearing nappies, whilst they were, I don't know what they were doing, some kind of sweatshop job. And the reason that they were wearing nappies was because they said the toilet breaks were just not really allowed, and you didn't know if you're going to make it. I mean, this is in the US on minimum wage. It's
Look,
slavery.
at the end of the day,
Globalization.
Well,
Well,
look,
it's what it
look
leads
at the
to.
way the world's going. I mean, technology is literally burgeoning. It's so prolific now.
But well, that's another thing again. I mean, with robots and all that, it's
we
another
are
thing again.
diametrically opposed to sort of advancement. Humanity is a sort of diametrically opposed to our own creative ability, wherever that creative ability has come from. Mark.
Or even, are we going to look back and say 2016 was the year that globalization was, if you like, defeated or reversed, or the tanker was begun to turn around?
No, I don't think so.
No.
I mean, anyone who says this year is, bad is probably going to have a bit of a shock, because I think next year could potentially be even worse when you think about the many, problems that it's set up which need to be solved in the future. But as for the globalization
good,
thing,
I've got to say. But anyway,
let Mark finish.
Yeah, but
no, I just throw that in there.
Yeah, it's a good point, but I would have to say that on the globalization thing, then of course that this is a super tanker which is not going to be easily changed around, and there are many elite groups who are going to carry on doing the stuff that they have, and I really could not see that changing in the foreseeable future. And it's not that I've got a lack of imagination. I just think it's beyond any kind of grounds of credibility that that's going to change. You talk about the groups that we've mentioned there, like the Bilderberg.
Because we've got momentum into that.
Yeah, and Davos and all these other things. In the UK we have the Chatham House, which is like a sort of another group of people who meet, and it's all off the record and nods and winks and stuff like that. Those things are not going to go away. For example, like it would be nonsense. So whether you think that they're irrelevant or not, then there are a lot of powerful people in there, and they're going to carry on doing stuff. Surely.
You see, Trump. Now, this is something we've been talking about a bit on this show with a few folks. Trump promised to drain the swamp in the same way that Obama promised, hope and change, and we are changing all that. No lobbyists or Wall Street in the White House, he said. Trump this time is saying drain the swamp. If he was to drain the swamp, he would, but it would by turn, it would change the course of globalization, wouldn't it? But will he? And his administration shows no signs of that at all.
I don't see Trump doing anything original. I don't like Donald Trump, I have to say. I mean, I don't think the majority
Keep to the facts,
of people.
Piers.
Well, I don't think people voted for Trump because of Trump. I think they voted for Trump because the other options were
they want the swamp drain.
They just saw a continuation of the same old recipe, regardless of Democrat or Republican. I mean, like, I don't think.
Can he get away, Gary? Can he get away with just leaving the swamp, just ignoring it?
Well, of course he can. The people who voted for Donald Trump don't follow the facts of reality. They just don't check anything. I mean, Donald Trump is nominating Rex Tillerson, the CEO of ExxonMobil, to be Secretary of State.
Yeah, that says something.
How can anyone say that the people who put him in office are going to hold him to the slightest account when he feels that it's perfectly acceptable to nominate somebody like that to be the Secretary of State of the United States of freaking America?
Yeah.
And
yeah,
Rick Perry,
if you look at
Secretary of Energy. Oh my God.
Rick Perry, yeah. Yeah, but so the energy department apparently needs a big shake-up, and he kind of said he was going to dismantle it, and so
right.
It's a question.
Basically throwing a.
He's basically got a bunch of billionaires to come and run his cabinet for him. So are these guys, can we trust billionaires? This is the ultimate question. I mean, it's like, how do people get to where they are in life? How do they get to be so rich? How do they get to be so successful? one has to assume that there is a degree of ruthlessness involved in their ability to get where they've
off.
gone.
We're in danger of going off topic here.
We are a little bit, but I mean, like, who else has died?
So I'll tell you something that died this year. Brangelina.
Oh yeah, Brad and Angie, yeah.
But you know what? Actually, the coverage wasn't quite that big. Are we, Mark? What do you think? Are we this year? The real news was so prolific, so dense. Are we actually in danger of maybe being less interested in celebrity news? Of that being slightly pushed from the focus? Or are we still desperate for Big Brother?
True. I think we probably have got I dread to say it, but maybe not us personally, but a lot of people have got a fairly insatiable appetite for finding out what's going on with, celebrity people and the rest of whether you're living your life vicariously or you're genuinely interested. I mean, the amount of outpouring.
Do you not think that people became maybe more involved in what's really going on? What with, for example, Brexit? And in the US with the US election and places like Italy, obviously another big pivotal, things going on there. And
yes, well, I would not defend it, but I'm just going to say it's like, in the last few days we had obviously Carrie Fisher, and then followed by Debbie Reynolds, and what an outpouring of social media. People are really interested in this, and in terms of like the number of retweets and stuff that on those two, it significantly outweighed almost anything else. Like, so the big issues which we probably should be caring about in this world, God rest their souls and all that stuff, but of course we should be concerned about what's going to happen to America. And no matter who became president, there's some huge issues which have got to be faced about relationship with Russia, with China, with the rest of the world. What happens in Syria? What happens with the U.S. economy? What you do with trade? And these are the things that would be really nice, wouldn't it? Like if people were talking about that. But people are people, and they're interested in Brangelina. They're interested in George Michael. That's the way that the world is.
Well, I mean, I think it's fair.
That's a very prevalent point.
I think it's fair. If you're interested in, I'd like to think people would be interested in both. I'll tell you, what was quite sad was Debbie Reynolds died as well, off the back of her daughter dying. That was quite poignant, wasn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, they had a very fractious and difficult relationship, which is, tantamount to sort of the Hollywood existence and the kind of lifestyles that they. I mean, Carrie Fisher was a mess. I mean, she and John Belushi did so many drugs together, when they were making,
he's another one,
Animal House or whatever, I mean, she was off a nut. She didn't know,
was she in Animal House?
I remember seeing a documentary about
the Blues Brothers.
The Blues Brothers, that was it.
Yes, thank you,
They were just, off their nut, and she barely knew how to deliver her lines, because she was literally off a gourd. On drugs with John, and I mean,
Princess Leia.
Well, she was. I mean, she was 19 when she got Leia, and
she got laid.
Well, when she got the part, and
we can hope she did.
I mean,
but what's that old Latin phrase? Nil nisi bonum. Basically, don't say bad things about dead people. Well, we do, of course, and we just have there. But you can also look on the bright side of things. With Carrie Fisher, like for whatever you might say against her, but she wasn't. And and same with George Michael. For all the bad things we said about him, it's come out since his death that he gave very substantial amounts, billions, to charity, which I think is incredibly laudable. And to put it on record just to say, well, whatever you might say about George in some respects, the fact that he sees a news story on some student nurse who's got huge debts of £50,000, whatever that is in dollars, and he just writes a check and says, here you are. It's nothing for George Michael, but for her it's like completely life-saving.
You're absolutely right. He did a lot of that, and wanted no recognition for it whatsoever. And actually, you see, we are now posthumously beginning to realise that actually, I mean, to be fair, what I've seen of George Michael in the last few years and what he's done in such a sort of self-deprecating way on the television, with pieces with James was it James, that fat boy? What's his name? James Corbyn. James, what's his name?
What
you know,
are
that
you
English
talking-
boy who's done really well in America and has his own chat show now.
Yeah, James Gordon. Yeah.
James Corden. Yeah, I mean, like, he does that sort of that sing along thing in the car, and George
karaoke.
car karaoke. Car something, car, whatever it is. I don't know. Carpool karaoke. That's it. Yeah. And George was sort of the first to get in the car with him, and he was really sending himself up. I think it was a Children in Need thing that the BBC did with James Corden, and to be fair, yeah, everything I've seen him do recently, you know, on the television has been very sort of self-deprecating send-up stuff, but the fact was that he was prepared to do that. Because he knew
he was a very human bloke.
Yeah, actually, I think the bloke, he really genuinely was. He was somebody who genuinely cared, but his voice was sort of muffled somehow. And I think that personally, I believe his demise is directly attributed to his inner, you know, the fact that he was trying to say something real and true. And the establishment sort of worked against him, and that sort of denigrated his ability.
How would they have worked against him? What are they?
Well, you know, just, you know, that they're happy for him to sort of go on television in a self-deprecating way, in a sort of an innocuous and charitable way. But when, you know, he wasn't really allowed to do anything other than send himself up, you know.
He could do what he liked.
No, he couldn't. This is the thing. I mean, like, he was given the opportunity to do some singing and pay homage, but realistically speaking, he was muted, and I think that really hit him hard in the same way.
Okay. Mark, a question for you. If you look at the kind of the current crop of teeny boppers, you know, the Miley Cyruses and stuff, and blah blah blah, and the kind of satanic and very sexual kind of iconry involved in their various routines. What is that? I mean, what has happened? I mean, this is in the old days. Maybe a Black Sabbath kind of, you know, it was a bit of a laugh, wasn't it? Now it's almost every other pop video has, for example, some kind of satanic references or just a cultish iconry and stuff like that. It is peculiar, quite aside from the fact that it is all so sexualized, which is kind of odd, because I mean, why do we want to subject kids to such sexualization at such a young age, which is basically what happens, because these are their, you know, role models, rightly or wrongly.
You think?
No,
I'm just I'm listening and thinking, that's probably true. I just really stumbled when you said the word teeny boppers there, and it completely threw me. I thought this is like a real 70s word. Do we still have teeny boppers?
I'm sorry.
Wrong terminology.
Oh, sorry, I have my point. Yeah.
But you know, it's true that, like, you know, a lot of young pop acts then, you know, are, you know, they've got a certain sexualization about them, which is true. Yeah, but I'm not sure whether it's necessarily in 2016 much different to what it was 10 years ago. But you know, tell me I'm wrong. I don't know. And you know,
well,
the
it
videos
is.
I see.
And I'll tell you why. I'll give you an example, because in that is it outside, George Michael's outside, when the toilets come through the wall, they turn around, the urinals, and it all turns into a sort of a disco, you know, kind of having it along, you know, in a kind of an entertaining way with the cops, blah, blah, blah. That it looked really innocent compared to what you see now. I mean, Miley Cyrus is basically bent over with her arse in the air, pushing you know, all the way up to whatever she can, you know, up to.
Yeah, well, Miley Cyrus has been like that for, you know, a little time as well. And
but it's not just her, is it? Beyonce, you know, for example, she's got it. Yeah, up there. I mean,
I thought that you know, the whole series of videos that made up that last Lemonade album were just absolutely extraordinary. And I mean, yes, there was some sexuality in them, but I don't find it is necessarily any more, you know, sexually explicit than something like Madonna all those years ago. Like, you know, and you know, and you know.
Yeah, but it wasn't as blatant, was it?
I don't think there was much more blatant than "Justify My Love," to be honest about it.
No,
You know?
I mean Madonna was very highly sexualized. I mean, and none of us were moaning when she produced her sex book or I mean, yeah, I mean to be fair, Madonna and Miley Cyrus can draw a strong parallel. I mean, Miley Cyrus is a replication in the contemporary arena of what Madonna was doing when we were at school. I mean
Mark isn't being drawn, Piers. He's not.
Well, I mean, I do think the whole thing is.
I'm trying. Coming at it from every angle.
Sexualized. It is highly sexualized, and it is iconic. I don't know what the word is, but there is a sort of iconography, a depiction, a sort of there is a sort of I don't know.
I don't know which touches my funny bone more. It's the teeny boppers or iconography. When people talk about someone's an icon, to me, I sort of think, what exactly does that mean? You know what I mean?
No. Well, I don't mean it in that way.
Yeah. But I see
there's a lot of iconry.
Yeah.
In the videos.
Yes, and that's a point well taken, as they say. Don't point that root at me or whatever. But yeah, that's right. That's very true. But
who else has died this year? Then I mean,
I tell you one name. We were talking about, like Bowie, and like here's an album which came out and then he died 2 days later, and it was clearly his like last will and testament or whatever. But in a not very different sphere, later on in the year in November, we had, of course, Leonard Cohen.
Leonard Cohen, of course, yeah.
And that was so clearly an album like "This Is My Sign Off." That you wanted darker, and he's got that line in the middle of that where he goes, "I'm ready, my lord," and he has that baritone voice of his. And like if anyone it's close to saying I'm gonna go, and he lasted for about 17 days or something afterwards before he did. And
he was very aware, in the same way that Bowie was, and wanted to sort of leave a kind of sort of self-personalized epitaph, kind of in an artistic format. I mean,
yes. And it's a brilliant record, I must say. It's one of the, it's certainly to me, it's one of the best records of the year. And and some people could say it's overdone with it. "I'm ready, my lord." But he put it out, and then there were so many people asking him questions to his press people. They then put out a statement saying, "I intend to live for a very long time," which he must have known was like, not going to happen. But he also said, like, expected his music to last for a long time.
Exactly.
And I think it most definitely will. So.
Oh God. No question. I mean, Cohen is a huge influence on the music world. I mean, I mean, coming out with a statement like that's a wonderful sort of open statement. For when your time is limited. I'm going to outlast my own demise. I'm going to live on. I mean,
that's right.
As do so many wonderfully gifted. I mean, look at this. Look at how popular Mozart is, even today. I mean, he died centuries ago, and he outsold Beyonce this year, I think, in terms of album sales, or musical sales, downloads. Mozart still cutting the mustard, and you wonder what he would be thinking if he knew just how prolifically popular he still was, even today. And this is I mean, people obsess about legacy. Personally, I don't really care about any of that. But it's not that I've got much to legicize about. But I mean, but it's sort of like why is this? Why is there such a strong obsession to sort of make your mark? Well, is that sort of an egocentric thing, or I mean, one wants to live a good life and do good things and try and be a responsible, influential grown-up, who might have some sort of influence over others, in a positive manner. But when it comes to sort of, what's the word? Where you're kind of immortalized. Why is it?
Well, sort of hero worship.
Well, just this sort of idea. I mean,
idolatrized.
I don't know. I mean, it's not bad. I don't know. Why?
I don't know. What is
Piers.
it? Vita brevis ars longa. You'd like to do something which will live on after your days, perhaps, and some people would anyway.
What would you like to be recognised for, Mark? I mean, if you were going to die tomorrow, God forbid, but if you were going to pop your clogs tomorrow and have a horrible coronary or something, what would you like to be remembered for?
I think probably just having written a few good articles. I mean, I could say some of my books and stuff like that, but I mean, if someone remembers some of the, my mots justes and thinking that was a clever review, or that made me discover some artists that they otherwise wouldn't know, then that would do me. I'd be happy with that. I would really be quite pleased if if I was remembered in some way, but I'm not necessarily sure I would. I've managed to, for my sins to name a couple of woods outside London, and I've given them various names and stuff, and they're now on maps and things. So presumably in hundreds of years' time, then those woods will still have their names. So what are they
called? They're called directly after you.
No, they're not. They're not named after me. They're named after one of them has got bluebells in, so it's called Bluebell Wood. It's near Ledbury in Herefordshire, and there's Moat Wood as well, which has got an old moat of an Iron Age fort in. So basically, these were just sort of forests which didn't have names, and because I owned
how did you get involved with the naming of these particular places?
I own them, basically. So they're my books. So
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is all very twee. Yeah.
We've got a landowner on our show.
Topic. I thought I'd let Piers, let the flow go. Lemmy died, Mark.
Yeah, well, actually, he wasn't this year. It was very late last year where I discovered that. We were talking about it earlier on, weren't we? Lemmy was just, I met Lemmy. I mean, and actually, I went on CNN.
Lemmy from Motorhead.
Yeah, and I mean,
he was a bit of a character, no?
Yeah, absolutely. With all all his his Nazi stuff and all the rest of it. But when I met up with him again, he seemed a very sort of genuine, very relaxed guy, and I was quite pleased about it because we shared a few drinks and stuff. This was in Birmingham a long time ago. They were doing a concert that night at Motorhead, and so that they dedicate all of their songs to something. Well, they Lemmy used to do that. So this is for the girls in the audience, or this is for the roadies and stuff like that, or it's for Little Philly, and they name all these songs. And like that, virtually the last song they did before Motorhead itself, which is always the kind of closing one, was Ace of Spades. And he said, "This is the first guy I met up with today. It's called Mark, and this is for you, Mark." And this is it's me, obviously. Ace of Spades. I've still, I look at the lyric of that, and think, what's that got to do with me? I don't know.
How cool is that?
Yeah, so anyway,
you had him dedicate a song. Wow, the song. Cool. I mean, how cool is that?
Ace of Spades. But look at it. That's got a line in it about lasting forever, isn't it? And obviously, Lemmy didn't. But I mean, he almost came into this year, but people are now saying we've only got how many days of the year left, sort of let's lock up all the greats so nobody else goes away before the end of the year, and I really hope that's the case. We've had enough this year.
Yeah, I think we have. Yeah, no, there have been a lot of very.
There's always Bob Geldof. I mean.
Well, yeah, Geldof. I just don't know what to make.
He really annoyed me this year. He did. He really annoyed me getting involved in the whole Brexit debate.
Yeah, me too. I mean, regardless of what your politics are, he was very militant, as he always has been. But now I've heard that he's sort of changing his perspective on the whole thing, and sort of,
really?
not quite. Yeah, not quite sure
what's
whether or not he. Well, that's what I've read. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Mark can.
What have you read? You haven't told us what you've read.
Well, he was so militantly pro Europe. I mean, I like the idea of Europe. Don't get me wrong.
What do you think he's changed his tune?
Yeah, I think he has. Yeah, I think he is beginning to sort of have a change of perspective. I mean,
he campaigned in that by-election in Richmond, didn't he? Against Goldsmith.
Goldsmith, yeah, man, yeah.
I
haven't heard that, but maybe it's right. No, I take your word for it, Piers. And people change when the facts change. Then I'll change my opinion or whatever it's that the man said. But for Geldof to change his spots is it's unusual, isn't it? You know,
well, it is. I mean, he's a very stubborn, intransigent gentleman. So it's sort of, one wouldn't expect him to have some sort of radical change of philosophy.
Guys, hold on. Just let me interject. I'm sorry, Gary. Are you there? Gary?
No.
Yes.
I'm long since gone. Why do you ask?
Okay. Yeah, it's all right. I just wondered.
He did disappear for a minute, but
I did, but I'm back.
Mm-hmm.
Mark,
you guys are outside of my areas of expertise.
Well,
let's bring the states back into this conversation because.
Well, no. Hold on. I first of all, because we've got about 15 minutes left, but I wanted to ask you, Mark, something relating to Geldof and with the Brexit thing, because that obviously has been on our side of the Atlantic. That's been the big story of the year.
Yeah.
Is it going to happen?
Well, is Brexit going to happen?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I would say 100%.
Do you genuinely think it will?
Yes, I do.
I think Theresa May's a bit of a double agent. I think she preaches a good song, but at the end of the day, I think the reason why she was sort of lined up, and I do believe she was very much lined up to be PM post Cameron, in order to sort of facilitate the same agenda, and she knows that there will be, if she doesn't fulfill, at least sort of appear to be fulfilling the democratic process, then there will be hell to pay. But I think you've only got to look at what she did, as Home Secretary with the child sex abuse inquiry, and how that's been so horribly mishandled. And we've had 3 chairs, who have come and gone. It does seem like a huge stitch up and a massive tactical delay mechanism, in terms of exposing what's really been going on. And if she was party to that and responsible for that, then she was obviously as a sort of an establishment figure, she was seen as a clean pair of hands to be able to go in to lead the government, and play the same duplicitous tune that she played as Home Secretary, and obviously people are more trusting of women, and she's a forceful lady, an intelligent lady, but let's face it, her husband is a major shareholder in a what's that firm called, it's a major security firm that oh God, what the hell is it called? I don't remember what it's called. Somebody rescue me.
No, I don't know actually. But I still feel whichever firm it is, then I hear you. But I would almost totally disagree. I think the Brexit will happen. I think it will be incredibly embarrassing for the Conservative Party, if not Theresa May alone, if they didn't make it happen. And that is not to diminish the fact that it's going to be an incredibly difficult thing to do. The UK is not just going to be able to go along and say, here we are, this is what we want to do, and it's not going to be accepted by the EU. There's so many things that need to be untangled. It's like, there are things that if we just left the EU straight away, then there are laws which are enforced by the EU, not by us. And businesses could just, ignore the laws that we've got, UK laws, and you say, well, no one's going to enforce them. So it's like an extremely big divorce to make it happen. So it's not going to happen particularly quickly.
I think that is a very prevalent point to make, actually. Yeah, you're right. It is an extraordinarily complex. I mean, even the Guardian published an article quite recently, in the last couple of days, actually, about exactly that, about just how completely complex this whole strategy. Because there was no recipe for divorce. I mean, this is unprecedented in the sense that this was never going to happen. It was just
okay. Mark, what do you say?
Well, I certainly agree with most of what Piers has just said there, actually. I think that's absolutely right. But, I do feel that it's going to happen. I'm actually trying to look up to find out where Philip May is, which company he represents is an investment relationship manager, I see here. But anyway, I mean, that's kind of like, it's a sideshow. I mean, basically, come next year, whatever happens with the court and the appeal Brazil and stuff, we're going to have Article 50 being triggered, and then start a long process, which the Conservative Party, I'm sure, would like to get finished by the time we get to the next general election. So they haven't got that long to do it, but we'll see. I mean,
I read a story this week, Mark.
Yeah,
I read a story this week that said that they could reverse our triggering clause 50.
Oh, that's interesting. And so you feel,
I mean, it was in the Independent, it has to be said.
Yeah. Well,
they're very hopeful at the Independent, aren't they?
Does your magazine Dante have an online presence as well as a sort of physical publication? I mean, like
DanteMag.com. You find it there, and we have done a number of bits on Brexit, and we're a European magazine, so
Do you have a Facebook page as well?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, you'll find it on that.
The thing is, Mark,
but for the point of view, I was going to say with us is we've come about it from a neutral point of view, and we just encourage fair debate on both sides.
Yeah, I agree.
And quite a fair few people have told us that that whatever happens with Brexit, and we can argue about that. The European Union is actually now in quite severe danger of being badly damaged, compromised itself, or maybe
it's on the rock.
I think that's one to watch.
Yeah, I mean, look at what happened with Italy with that referendum, and their prime minister, who was an EU technocrat, parachuted in.
Yeah,
and now they've got another one who's EU parachuted in.
Yeah,
Italy is such a joke.
Yes,
but the referendum said no.
Yeah, I mean, Helen Horst is the journalist who writes for us, and she's a US journalist, so she's writing about Trump Hillary a little while ago and saying, this is what will happen whoever wins, because we were coming out just as the election closed. But she's also been writing about the situation with Brexit being followed by what they call Brecu, with the breakup of Europe potentially. And yeah, indeed, she's talking about, first of all, she says about what's going to happen with Italy, but she moves on to all the other things, what's going to happen in France if Le Pen managed to do quite well, very unlikely to be elected, but that could be quite damaging. And most interestingly, perhaps, is the Netherlands.
Well, that would be it. That would be
polls
the
at the moment show that they're narrowly in favour of staying in the EU, only narrowly. If the polls keep on moving the direction they have, within a year, then the Netherlands would be, if they had a referendum. I mean, this is very, hypothetical, but they could vote to leave.
That's right.
So,
that actually is far more likely than Le Pen. Far more likely. Wilders is a big chance he could be Dutch PM.
Yeah.
And why is this happening? I mean, at the end of the day, I am all for people being able to live their lives and worship who they choose, but that has to be respectful. And at the end of the day, we've gone into the Middle East over the last few decades, bombed the crap out of the place, killed millions indiscriminately, and nobody can argue that isn't true. And we've caused this tidal wave of refugees into Western Europe. Yeah, and we are, being bombed. And we are now in this situation where we have people from radically different backgrounds from ourselves. These people have a very different outlook on life to ourselves, and we're thrusting these two worlds together, and clearly it's not working.
But apparently this is what the Germans are beginning to think. But that is one issue. But I mean, when I voted for Brexit, and I voted for Brexit to get out, for me it was about just wanting to make up my own mind, not having, well, as much as possible in a democracy, as much as possible. Which when you add an extra layer of government, you lose democracy. It's as simple as that. You take away a degree of sovereignty, plus it's a rip-off for Britain. I mean, it's just a joke. Second net contributor and all that, for the result is which you just don't need any of it, because even if you just had global trading rules, you'd be better off. It just doesn't make any sense at all. But it's not only that. In fact, it's not that. It's the fact that the EU itself is not being it's not playing, has never been playing fair. It's just grabbed more and more and more power, which was really just, my word, they went overtime with Lisbon. And they want an army and all the rest of it. They can't even run a continent, the economy. They can't even sort out they couldn't even realize that the currency wouldn't work.
Well, you've got to realize, I mean,
and now they want an army. These people are just, they're dangerous. They're dangerous. They really are.
It's not all dangerous.
Mark, to me, the whole thing is just a big plutocratic instrument, and actually a cornerstone to what Jean-Claude Trichet, first president of the EC Bank, said. That French bloke, one of the other founders, basically a cornerstone to a global government.
Yeah, well, we're now in a situation where we could have a breakup of the EU, as said anyway. So some of these things might fall by the wayside. But they would help themselves a bit. Like whatever your views are on Brexit,
we haven't been told the true agenda, though, have we?
Yeah, but if they'd have sort of listened a bit more. For example, when David Cameron came along and
Delors, Jack Delors, I meant. Sorry, carry on.
Oh, Delors, yes, of course. But, when David Cameron came along though and said, we're thinking of leaving. This is your one chance to give us something. And of course, well, maybe they'd say they have to say this anyway, but they said no. Even when they have a gun held to their heads, they're not particularly listening to the EU. So various people in the referendum campaign were saying, you're wanting to quit the European Union without giving it a fair shot. You should be inside it to produce change. It's patently clear that by being in the EU, then the United Kingdom would not be able to get the reforms that it wanted. So at which point then you might as much say, well, yeah, let's come on out of it. That's what many people would say. As you can take it or not. I'm rather sitting on the fence of the way I'm wording this, but you can take it whichever way you want from there.
Well, guys, we're going to have to go in a sec. We're nearly there, top of the hour. But there were a few other names I just wanted to chuck out there quickly this year. Tribute to
Zaza Gabor? What about Zaza Gabor? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Who else?
Did Zaza Gabor die? Oh, God.
Yeah, 99. Yes, earlier on this month. Yeah.
99.
Her son did too.
Good innings.
Her son had a motorcycle accident on the day of her death and subsequently died. And that is the second double death, celebrity death this Christmas. That one and Debbie Reynolds with Carrie Fisher.
Kind of makes you feel that they're all sort of like, makes you feel that they're faking their deaths and they're sort of checking into some sort of special kind of, we're all boarding the ship kind of thing, for the I don't know. It's
absolutely. Alan Rickman.
Either that or Santa's a serial killer.
Rickman.
One of the two.
Hey, Gary?
I said either that or Santa's a serial killer. One of the two.
Either that or everyone's having a really good party up there.
Oh, we're going to have to go.
Bye.
I mean, in a minute. I'm just warming up, yeah? I had the fake.
Okay.
But,
well, listen, it's been very, very nice to have you on, Mark and Gary.
Mark Beech, DanteMagazine.com.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mark,
Gary,
I hope you'll come back
chickens.
on another time.
Yeah. With the cocks too, yeah.
And that's, I'll tell you what, I want to say 2016, thank you, Revolution Radio. Yeah, from old Piers and Gary and me. Thank you, Revolution Radio. We're really chuffed to be here.
Yeah, we are. We love it. It's great.
I'm sorry Piers came back.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio.